Okay, so it feels like AI is everywhere these days, right?
Hmm.
You just can't get away from it. Every time you turn around, there's some crazy new headline about, AI doing this or AI doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does feel like AI is just taking over the world, right? Like robots are going to be writing novels and composing symphonies any day now.
Right. And, it's all very exciting and everything. But then you look at how most businesses are actually operating, and it's like, well, not much has changed,
Yeah.
you know? It's still spreadsheets and emails and just the same old grind.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you think about it. Like, we have all this incredible potential with AI, but it doesn't really seem to have trickled down into, the day-to-day reality of most companies.
It really is a weird disconnect. And that's what we're going to be diving into today, trying to unpack this whole AI puzzle and see why there's such a gap between all the hype and the reality of its use in business. We've gone through a ton of research, reports, articles, all that good stuff. And our mission today is to kind of figure out, what are the biggest reasons why so many companies are finding it so hard to actually take AI out of the lab and, put it to work in their actual operations. What do you think? Where should we even begin to untangle this mess?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the hype versus reality thing. There's so much buzz around AI, but I think one of the first and maybe most fundamental problems is that there's just a lack of understanding about what AI actually is. People throw around terms like artificial intelligence, machine learning, generative AI, all these buzzwords, but how many people can actually explain what those things mean, in a practical sense?
Yeah, it's like everyone's using the same vocabulary, but they're not really speaking the same language.
Exactly.
Like, you could ask 10 business leaders on the street, hey, what's the difference between AI and machine learning? And I bet you most of them wouldn't be able to give you a clear answer.
Oh, totally. And I think that's a huge problem because you have all these leaders making decisions about AI, investing in AI projects, but they don't really have a solid grasp of what they're actually dealing with. It's like, okay, we need to get into AI, but then, it's like, well, but what does that actually mean for our business?
It's like that whole digital transformation thing. A few years ago, everyone was scrambling to go digital, but a lot of them didn't really have a clue about, you know, what that actually meant in practice for their specific industry or business.
Oh, yeah, it's just a buzzword bingo.
Exactly. And then they end up just kind of throwing money at solutions that don't really fit their needs or solve their actual problems. I was reading about this one company that invested a ton of money in an AI-powered chatbot for customer service. They thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. It's going to cut our support costs in half. But they hadn't thought about, integrating it with their existing CRM system or any of their customer data.
Oh, no.
So basically, this sophisticated AI is asking every customer like the same basic questions over and over again. It's like they bought a Formula One race car and then they're just driving around their cul-de-sac.
Oh, that's hilarious.
They've got all this power under the hood, but they're not really using it. And then, when they don't see these miraculous results, they're like, well, AI is a bust. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And I think that kind of feeds into this bigger problem of unrealistic expectations.
Hmm.
People see all these headlines about AI doing amazing things and they think it's going to be this magic bullet that's going to solve all their problems overnight. But the reality is AI is a tool, and like any tool, it has its limitations.
Right.
You have to understand how it works, what it's good at, what it's not good at. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. It's like, expecting a Swiss Army knife to perform open heart surgery.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Okay, so even if a company, understands AI pretty well, there must be some other hurdles, right? It can't just be, a knowledge gap that's holding everyone back.
Oh, absolutely. Even with a good understanding of AI, you still have to deal with the practical realities of cost and resources, which can be a major barrier for a lot of companies.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Implementing AI solutions often requires a pretty big upfront investment,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you got to think about infrastructure, computing power, specialized software platforms.
Mm.
And then on top of all of that, you need the right people with the right skills to actually build and manage and maintain all these systems.
Yeah, and that's a whole other challenge in itself. Like you said, AI talent is in incredibly high demand right now, and it's a really competitive market. So not only do you need to find these highly skilled people, but you also have to be prepared to pay them a premium.
Yeah, you're talking about some serious budget implication.
Yeah.
So you've got this situation where smaller businesses, they see the potential of AI,
Hmm.
but they have to weigh those potential benefits against, the risk of blowing their budget.
Yeah.
Like deciding whether to invest in, a state-of-the-art oven for your bakery when the one you have still technically works.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, the new oven might bake amazing bread, but can you afford it? And is
Yeah.
that amazing bread actually going to bring in enough extra customers to justify the cost?
Yeah, and it's not just about the cost of the technology itself. You also have to factor in the cost of finding and hiring and retaining the people who can actually make it work.
Exactly. So you're kind of stuck in this catch-22, right? Like, do you try to poach talent from bigger companies, which means getting into bidding wars that you're probably going to lose?
Hmm.
Or do you try to, train up your existing employees, which takes time and resources, and there's no guarantee that they'll develop, the level of expertise that you really need to get the most out of AI?
Exactly. It's a tough spot to be in.
It really is. So we've got the not really understanding what we're buying problem,
Hmm.
and we've got the can't afford the people to make it work problem. What's the next hurdle that we need to tackle? I have a feeling data is going to be lurking somewhere around here.
Oh, you are absolutely right. Data is essential for AI. I mean, it's the fuel that powers these systems, right?
Right.
But the problem is, a lot of companies, while they might have a lot of data, they often don't have the right kind of data, or it's not in a usable state.
Oh, the classic data paradox. It's like we're drowning in data, but we're starving for insights. It's like everyone's sitting on these potential gold mines, but they don't have the right tools or the maps to actually extract anything valuable.
Yeah, and there are a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes data is scattered across different systems, it's siloed, it's formatted inconsistently, it's full of errors. And then you have the added complexity of privacy regulations, which are really important, of course, but they can make it harder to actually access and use data in a way that's, beneficial for AI.
So you could have the most sophisticated AI algorithms in the world, but if you're feeding them garbage data, you're going to get garbage results. It's like trying to, bake a gourmet meal using rotten ingredients.
Yeah, I like that. It doesn't matter how fancy your kitchen is or how skilled of a chef you are.
Exactly. So it's not just about the AI itself, it's about the whole data ecosystem that surrounds it.
Exactly. And I think companies need to shift their focus from, just chasing the latest AI gels to actually investing in building a strong data foundation. That means, focusing on things like data governance, data quality, data accessibility.
Right. So it's like making sure your pantry is organized before you go out and buy all these fancy new kitchen gadgets.
Totally.
Okay, so we've got a lack of understanding about AI, we've got the high costs and the talent shortage, and now we've got the whole data mess. Yeah. That's already a pretty long list of challenges.
It is.
Is there anything else, any other big pieces to this puzzle that we need to consider?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and this is something that a lot of companies struggle with, is proving the return on investment for AI projects.
The good old ROI.
Yeah. Unlike traditional software where you can often see the benefits pretty quickly, AI is often more of a long-term investment.
Right, and it's not always easy to measure, right? It's not
Yeah.
like you install an AI system and boom, suddenly you're making tons more money.
Exactly. The benefits can be indirect. They can take time to really materialize.
Right. It's a lot harder to just put a dollar figure on it.
Exactly. So, for example, you might have a manufacturing company that implements AI-powered predictive maintenance to try to reduce equipment downtime. Now, the goal is to save money in the long run, right? By
Mhm.
preventing these breakdowns, but actually quantifying those savings and tying them directly back to the AI investment is not always easy.
Right.
There are a lot of variables at play, a lot of assumptions involved.
And I bet that uncertainty makes a lot of executives hesitant to really commit to AI.
Yeah.
They want to see the numbers, and if those numbers are kind of fuzzy, if it takes a long time to see those results, it can be a tough sell.
Yeah, it really can. It's like trying to convince someone to, invest in planting an oak tree.
Oh, I like that.
Like the long-term benefits might be amazing,
Right.
but they're not going to see any shade for decades.
Exactly. Okay, so we've laid out some pretty significant challenges here. The understanding gap, the cost and talent crunch, the data mess, the ROI uncertainty. It sounds like a pretty steep climb for any company trying to get into AI.
Yeah.
But it can't be all doom and gloom. I mean, there have to be some solutions, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what can companies actually do to start tackling these challenges?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing is, like we talked about, education. It's crucial for companies to really understand what AI is, what it can do, and what it can't do. And that means moving beyond just the buzzwords, really digging into the details.
Right. It's about equipping your team with the right knowledge and tools so they can make informed decisions.
Exactly. And it's not just about the tech team. It's about everyone in the organization, especially the leadership.
Right. It has to be a company-wide effort.
Absolutely. And then the second thing, instead of trying to boil the ocean, trying to implement this massive AI system all at once, start small.
Small steps.
Exactly. Start with pilot projects, that have clearly defined goals that are measurable. That way you can test the waters, you can demonstrate value, you can learn some lessons without making a huge commitment.
It's like dipping your toes in the pool before you jump in the deep end.
Exactly. And then finally, and this is maybe the most important thing, focus on your data.
Data.
Clean data, accessible data, well-governed data, because at the end of the day, even the most sophisticated AI is only as good as the data it's trained on.
It's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Yeah, you're not going to get very far.
It doesn't matter how beautiful the house is. If the foundation's no good, the whole thing's going to crumble. So basically, if you want to be successful with AI, you need to get the basics right.
Exactly.
Understand the technology, start small, and get your data in order. Like you said, it's not about some overnight revolution. It's about a strategic evolution.
I like that. A strategic evolution.
So we've talked a lot about the challenges and some potential solutions. But, if you had to pick one thing, what do you think is the single most important thing for companies to focus on if they want to really make AI work for them? What's the biggest mindset shift that needs to happen? Because it feels like it's more than just buying the right technology, right? It's about something deeper.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's about a fundamental change in how companies approach innovation. It's about being willing to experiment, to learn, to adapt, to embrace a certain amount of uncertainty. Because AI, it's not a plug-and-play solution. It's an ongoing process of discovery and refinement.
I love that. That's such a great point. It's about embracing the journey, not just chasing the destination.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. This has been such a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
For our listeners, I want to leave you with this. As AI continues to evolve at this breakneck pace, and as it becomes more and more integrated into our lives, how do you think our understanding of what it means to be human is going to change? What are the ethical implications that we need to be thinking about now? Because this isn't just about technology, it's about what kind of future we want to create.
Great questions. Yeah.
It's something to really think about. Thanks for listening, everyone.